And so then when I ask you the question, like, is your dad proud of you? And you're like, I don't know what difference that would make. Dude, it's going to make all the difference.
I
I
don't
think
think I'd know how to process that even if he did say it.
you're damn right you don't, which is the entire problem. Right? Because, like, how do you process that which you've never heard before? Yeah. Oh, hey. Hey, man.
Yeah, that last interview was March of last year, actually.
Okay. So, and we are following up with you, right? I have the right Azrael?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I was going to say, like, now that I see the face, I remember. So we talked about social anxiety or something? Or confidence? Remind me again?
I think we talked about overthinking.
Okay.
So, when I have to do something and then like I'll generate all these thoughts about what could go wrong.
Okay. So can you fill us in a little bit about, in a little bit more detail about what we covered last week? I mean, last year.
I don't know. It's a long time ago. I think
Okay.
we talked a lot about sort of success and failure and like feeling destined to succeed or fail.
Okay.
There was, I don't know.
Okay. So tell us, how have you been over the last year and a half? It's been about 15 months, right?
Something like that. I don't know. There's been a lot that's going on. So I've done coaching,
Okay.
and I think I mentioned last stream that like I was switching majors to physics. I ended up dropping out of physics and switching back to marine biology.
Okay.
And then with the help of a therapist, I actually managed to finish second year a
Awesome.
few months ago.
Okay.
And I got back into coaching a few months ago in the high performance group.
Okay,
So,
cool. So it sounds like
yeah.
you've been, and how do you feel about stuff?
So it was definitely very rough in the beginning. I think I like just so much has happened that I'm definitely feeling a lot better now than I was. I don't know. I've been focusing a lot on self improvement and just getting better and improving myself and feeling my emotions and trying to take action in my life. So it's all
Good for
sorts
you,
of
man.
stuff. Yeah.
So, you want to say something else?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm kind of, if I remember, because it has been a while. If I remember correctly, you were very externally concerned. Like your mind would think about what would happen.
Yeah.
Right. So like, does that ring? I mean, can you share with us? Because like, remind me a little bit if you remember, because I know it's been like over a year, but like if I'm just remembering like notes of the conversation about like, you'd be concerned that this would happen and it wouldn't go well and like you may not do well and things like that.
Yeah. Sort of like I was very outcome oriented, where it was like, I'm trying to put my best quality work and like I got to do my best and everything. And yeah, so I think there's a lot of anxiety that I can build up about doing a particular task and making it, work and something that I can be proud of. I think there's a lot of fear around how other people perceive me if I mess up or fail. So I have social anxiety as well. Not online, it's only like in real life, which is interesting. So
Okay. And so has that changed for you at all, Azrael, about being outcome oriented or?
yeah, so when I was in coaching and in therapy, I started to get my life together, and it was interesting because all these things were sort of, I was doing school, I was taking better care of myself, but the emotions did not change. I still felt terrible for a long time, and sort of like, well, this isn't working. I don't know what's going on. I've done everything. And I think I realized that the problem was that I wasn't addressing the underlying sort of emotions and what I was feeling. I was just sort of trying to push past it to do what I needed to do.
And what kind of emotion was underlying? Can you help us understand that?
Well, I think there was definitely fear, hopelessness, loneliness, sadness, frustration at like feeling all those things.
Yeah,
it's just all sorts of stuff.
And Azriel, forgive. Do you prefer Azriel, by the way, or do you want me to call you something else?
I guess it's up to you, Azriel or Thomas.
What do you prefer? Whatever you prefer, my dude.
All right. Well, online I usually just go by Azriel.
Okay. So Azriel, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second, okay?
All right.
So you're saying that, like, so you started to put your life together, right? You went into coaching, you got into therapy. So it sounds like you did one batch of coaching, one round of therapy, and then a second batch of coaching.
Yeah.
And so the funny thing there is that, like, you're saying that, like, you started putting your life together. So you were, like, back in school, maybe you were, like, doing stuff, but internally you still felt awful. And so, like, my question to you is, isn't the point of going to therapy that it's supposed to fix the internal stuff? Like, how does that work? That externally things are going well, and internally, like, don't you go to therapy and doesn't that fix the internal stuff? Isn't that how it works?
Well, I don't know. It was when I was in therapy, it was, I told my therapist what my goals were to finish school and everything, and they were going to help me with that. I don't know. I found therapy was, so we only had like half an hour every week to talk, and I found it was mostly just me recapping what happened that week, and then the therapist would provide occasional input. But it was mostly just, and then they would validate or talk about whatever I was feeling and like maybe point out thought distortions and all that. And I think I used that to sort of help me progress, but I didn't use it to sort of address the underlying feelings necessarily.
And so once you had that realization, which is a big one, how do you feel about your therapy experience? Are you kind of happy with it, or?
So when I finished school, I felt like I got everything I needed out of therapy. Like, we discussed everything that I thought I was ever really going to need from it. So it was getting expensive, and I basically quit. What was the question again?
I was just curious about whether you were happy with your therapy experience.
Mixed feelings. So I definitely think it helped. I don't think it did everything that I thought it would do.
Okay. And can you help me understand, well, so let's start. What did you want it to do that it didn't do?
I think I wanted to, I don't know, just be more at peace with myself, maybe less stressed, less anxious. I think it did help with that. It's just that because it was only for 5 months, there was only so much progress that we could have made.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting because when I was in therapy, we were talking about how, like, I'm working so hard, I'm doing all this stuff, and it's not enough. And my therapist was like, "Oh, wait a minute, this is insane. You're thriving in a pandemic when most of my clients are like fish out of water." It's like, so I think part of therapy was just recognizing when I was pushing myself too hard or not acknowledging what I had accomplished and just looking at how far I've come.
So maybe one of the thought distortions.
Yeah, I guess so.
And
I think we also had, I have a lot of shoulds. So like, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. So we discussed that.
Yeah. So Azriel, it sounds like you've come a long way.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay, so you would own that as opposed to...
Definitely.
Okay. And can you help me understand what the experience of coaching was like versus therapy, and how the two are different or similar?
So with coaching, the first coaching I did, it was, me and a group of other people that maybe we were unfamiliar with our emotions. We didn't really know what we were doing in life, and we were just trying to figure things out. I think coaching was very good at, I'd say it's actually like, because coaching got me into therapy where we discussed, how our week was going. And again, I am devaluing all the stuff that I did that week. And they would stop me and say, hey, actually, that's pretty amazing. Like, good job. And I'd be like, but I didn't do anything. Like, what are you talking about? So I don't know. I think we worked through that. There was definitely some practical skills like reflective listening, recognizing, emotions, stuff like that. And then that got me into therapy, which was more one-on-one. I had someone through BetterHelp, and they were very good at, what's it called? I had it, and now I forgot. The cognitive behavioral therapy, I think it's called.
Okay, yeah, CBT. Sounds like it, with thought distortions.
Yeah. And so I think that was sort of a continuation of, where I left off with coaching. And then once therapy was too expensive when I finished school, and I still felt like I needed to talk to people, so I got back into coaching in the high performance group because I felt like I sort of progressed past the regular coaching by that point.
Sure. And what's that experience? Are you still doing the high performance group?
Yeah.
And how's that going?
That's pretty good. I think I feel in the group, and we've discussed this, is that, I'm the youngest member. I'm still in school. Most of them have jobs. And so maybe I just feel a little bit...
Azriel, I've heard about you. I'm now putting I heard about the group that you're in. If I remember correctly, so I heard that there was someone in one of the high performance groups that was really confused about what they were doing there. Is that you?
That was probably me.
And how do you feel about it now?
I think it's pretty good, actually.
Yeah. I'm really happy to hear that. So I if I could just share this. So I heard, so I sort of hear about, I don't know if you guys know this, but we do have like a model where I work with your coaches on a weekly basis. And so I hear about, challenges or situations in the different groups, and I'll kind of like weigh in. So I heard there was one group that, has like CEOs and people who are like have real careers. And there was one person who's very young who was really confused about what they were doing there. I don't know if that was you, or if that, maybe every group has one person that feels like they don't belong. But so I did sort of hear about that. And what do you think about being in the group now?
It's a pretty good experience. I like it. I have a lot to contribute, even if I'm the youngest member. And it's good to just share my opinion. Yeah.
Do you feel like the other group members respect you?
Yeah, I think so.
So that makes me really happy to hear, Azriel, because I think the goal of group is to have someone like you and come in and feel like Like, that's exactly what we're here to work on, right? Like, so you come into a situation, you're like, oh, all of these people are better than me. And the goal of group is like, we're going to work on you in the group until you no longer feel that way. You can honestly acknowledge that, yes, these people are actually objectively further along in life than I am. And yet it's okay for me to be here. That I can still make meaningful contributions, that something about my experience can still help other people, that I can still help them and they can still help me. And so if you feel like you belong there, like, I'm really happy to hear that, because I don't think I ever got an update. I just stopped hearing about it. So I sort of assumed that things had gotten better. But if you do have challenges, feel free to bring them up in the group, and then I think I'll wind up hearing about them if there's a concern or a problem.
All right.
But
well, I think
yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think more recently, with me trying to find a job this summer, I don't know, it brought up a lot of feelings of sort of inadequacy. Like, they all have jobs, and here I am. I had an emotional breakdown, like, in front of the job site, and it's like, I can't even get a job, and I'm in this group. So, yes, it brought up some of those feelings again.
Yeah, so it sounds like, once again, the feelings are down there. Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh, but I was just, despite all the progress we just talked about, I really commend you for saying, but by the way, it's not entirely fixed. And that's, Azrael, just to say, like, that's how growth happens. It's sort of like when I think about, even like playing a game, like, do you play games or?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you play?
Minecraft. I've done a lot of starblast.io, which, yeah, it's sort of, you're a spaceship and you go around and mine asteroids and upgrade your spaceship. And there's different game modes. You can play in a team, survival mode, capture the flag, all sorts of stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's just an online browser game. So
when I kind of think about games, when you're playing a game, like, you may not master something right away, right? Like, there's the first time you learn how to do something, and then you screw up a couple times, and then, like, you do it again, and then you screw up fewer times, and then you do it again, and then you screw up maybe once, and then you do it again, and then eventually, like, you have it down. And what I'm hearing from you is almost a similar pattern within group, where, like, you're gonna feel inferior, right? And there are objective reasons why I don't think you should feel inferior as a human, but in terms of experience, like, you may be the least experienced person in the group, but someone's got to be the least experienced person in the group. And at the same time, how can you grow and understand that? And then also, like, you're gonna have breakdowns in front of the job hunting page. Like, that's totally like normal, actually, right?
No, it wasn't the job hunting page. I actually got a job. I just never showed up.
Oh my goodness. How do you feel about that?
I went to the area where the job was, and then I was supposed to contact someone, but I never did. I don't know. I feel a little bit guilty about it. And, like, it was weird because, like, nobody even called me or asked me where I was, and it's been a few weeks now. I showed up like 2 other times, but I never actually was able to get into the job. So it was a general labor job, and I think I just have doubts about whether or not I'll be able to handle it, and maybe about working with other people there, especially because I haven't shown up in a few days. So, yeah.
When were you supposed to start your job?
Today is the 25th. I think on the 9th.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's been a long time.
And
no one's even contacted me to, like, fire me or ask me where I am, so I'm just looking for another job now.
Have you contacted them?
No.
Do you want to work there?
Not anymore.
What's changed?
I don't know. I just feel like I messed up. I don't think they'd want me back after not showing up for a few weeks. I I feel like they probably moved on and found someone else by now. So I don't see a reason to go back there. I think that I can find different work, something maybe I'll be better able to manage.
Are you concerned about being able to manage this job?
Yeah, I think so. It's full time, so I think it's 10 hours a day. And so it's a big commitment, and I'm not sure if I'm ready for that.
Okay. Is there
I tried at least. I
Yeah.
tried to show up and everything.
Sounds like it was a bit too much for you.
Maybe. I'm good at pushing myself past my boundaries, though.
I'm happy to hear you say that.
Showing up there was definitely pushing my boundaries already.
Yep. I completely agree, man. So sometimes I'll work with people about going to the gym. They'll want to go to the gym, and there are different ways to not go to the gym. There's the, I'd wish I want to go, and then never signing up for anything. Then there's signing up for stuff. Then there's waking up the morning of and not going. Then there's actually getting in your car and then deciding, fuck this, and getting out of your car. Then there's getting in your car, driving to the parking lot, waiting in the parking lot for 5 minutes with an existential crisis, and then driving home. And then there's walking in and feeling like an idiot if you walk out, so you might as well just check in completely. Because the person behind the desk is like, who is this person who's walking in the door, turns around and walks out? And then the embarrassment is going with you, and then you kind of enter the gym, and then you're like, it would be dumb to just turn around and walk out now, so I might as well work out a little bit. There are various phases, we kind of think about going to the gym or not going to the gym as binary, right? But the truth is that there's actually a progress bar in terms of getting a job. And even in terms of not showing up for the job, there's so many ways you can not show up. You cannot apply. You cannot interview. You can show up on your first day, have an existential crisis, turn around and leave. And I know it sounds weird, but that's honestly how it works. I wish it was simpler. I wish it was less painful, but
Yeah. I don't know. I've had a lot of those types of experiences, I don't know, since 2 years ago, since second year university. Just trying to figure out everything with living on my own, doing university in a pandemic, trying to feed myself, trying to, figure out income, money, all that stuff. So it's been a lot of work.
Yeah, man. It sounded like your therapist felt like you were thriving in a pandemic.
Yeah, I made a lot of progress for sure.
I can certainly, I don't really remember a lot of the details of our conversation, Azriel, but I certainly, I don't remember seeing this degree of confidence in you. There are certain statements that you've made where I really get the sense that you kind of acknowledge where you are. You accept how far you've come, because I get the impression that you used to make statements that would devalue your progress. You used to say, like you just made a statement a little while ago that I'm good at pushing past my boundaries. Whereas I feel like a year ago you would have said, I need to be better at pushing past my boundaries. Or I don't push myself past my boundaries enough.
I think even back then I was pushing myself a lot. That's why I was sort of, even getting on stream and stuff, that was pushing myself past my boundaries back then. It was a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess the difference is just that I've had more time to actually do that and figure out what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, how everything works.
Yeah. It sounds like you've been doing a lot of self-reflection and understanding yourself quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been, watching your videos like pretty much every single one since Reckful.
Have those been helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. You get a lot of all sorts of people with going through all their own struggles and just listening to it all and figuring out how it applies to me and trying to integrate that into how I approach my problems. I find it very helpful.
I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear it's been helpful. I never really know. I'm pretty sure I feel pretty confident about the person that I talk to, but I've always been curious just as a clinician because I've seen impact when I work with people individually. I've always just been like a little bit curious about how much benefit you can get from watching a YouTube video or like watching like real benefit, like sure you can get entertained. Maybe you can pick up a little bit of like neat information here or there, but can you actually change your life? And I find myself being skeptical.
Hey, yes. And I mean, it hasn't just been you. I mean, I follow one other Twitch streamer, Wyvern, and if I ever need a place to go to just, hang out and chill and have fun, I can go there. And even that's just a huge difference. And more recently, even in the Healthy Gamer Discord, I'm in talking with people in chill chat, and it's nice to get out of my head sometimes.
Yeah, Wyvern is fantastic, dude. I love what he does on Twitch.
Yeah.
So, Azriel, can you tell me a little bit? You said that for a long time you were like doing stuff outwardly and like actually making progress in your life, but you were sort of not recognizing or acknowledging emotions. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so when I am doing something, if it's outside my comfort zone, what I'll notice is, a bunch of emotions arise. There'll be fear, anxiety, social anxiety, worry, whatever. And then how I actually deal with that is to overcome all those emotions with frustration. I can use that to sort of suppress everything and just push through. And the problem with that is that, it provides a temporary buff at that time, but then you got to deal with all that stuff later. So.
Interesting. So it sounds like you've gotten good at pushing yourself past your comfort zone, but it's still a push. It's not easy. It requires like a lot of effort. And I'm also hearing it has a cost.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's where the devaluing comes in. It's like, I should be capable of doing this by now. Like, why am I so bad? And sort of using that to overcome those emotions and just, I think that's the sort of toxicity of maybe toxic productivity mindset where, I'm just beating myself up to get something done type of idea.
You really have been watching a lot of stuff and learning, Azriel. So where are you? I mean, is that something that you want to talk about today or potentially something we can work on? Or did you have thoughts about, how this conversation would go? Is there something I can help you with today?
No, I think what I wanted to take away, hopefully, was just how to maybe make that process a little easier on myself, that I'm not constantly struggling so much with everything, that should maybe be a little bit easier. Maybe just to be more at peace with my decisions, and not get so stressed out.
Okay. Can I just collect my thoughts for a second?
Sure.
I would really love to help you navigate that, Azriel. Let me just think about how to do that. Okay. Let me just toss a couple things out, okay? You let me know if we're kind of on the same page or not. So there's some kind of emotion, let's say fear, lack of confidence, something like that, excuse me. I made the mistake of having pizza for lunch. I've been eating healthier, but today, so, you have some kind of emotion, right? Some kind of lack of confidence. And then what happens is you practice some kind of frustration or self-loathing. You start beating yourself up. You're saying, oh, I should be better than this. And the interesting thing is that's somewhat of a double-edged sword because, like, if you feel ashamed, you can actually use shame as motivation. And you say, like, why am I so bad at this? I should be able to do it. And so then you force yourself, you push through that pile of emotion. There's one negative emotion that is keeping you from doing it. And then you kind of, fill up your engines with shame. And then you use that shame to overcome. And then you end up actually making progress in your life, which is great. But there's something incredibly, like, not peaceful about that, right? And this is where the toxic productivity comes in. Because when you use negative emotions to fuel your productivity, like, there's a toxic feel to it. So, I think what we can try to talk about today is, like, trying to understand how to disarm that negative emotion to begin with. So the interesting thing is you may be able to cultivate better sources of motivation, but if we think about, you need shame to succeed right now. You need it, right? And it's necessary to overcome that hump of whatever the negative emotion is. So if we can process and get rid of what's underneath, you'll need shame less. And so you can learn an alternate fueling strategy, or what you can do is require less fuel by, like, making the challenge a little bit better. And I do think that you've clearly worked hard, Azriel, and you're pretty insightful. So I think that maybe, like, that's something that we could work on today. What do you think?
For sure. And I'd also like to add, when I do disarm that sort of shame, it just means that I don't really do anything. That's where the thoughts of, like, what's the point? Why bother? Start coming up.
Yep. Right. So, like, you're saying, like, when I empty my engines, I don't move anywhere. And we're like, absolutely, man. So it's tough. It's tough. Okay. So the first thing that I just want to acknowledge is that if you keep doing what you're doing, Azriel, I think you'll continue doing fine and you will eventually feel better. So, like, I do think that emotionally, it sounds like you actually have made a lot of progress. And so the first thing that I kind of want to point out to everyone is sometimes people ask, like, despite making progress, why does it continue to be hard? And so this is where, like, I'm going to use, like, an online matchmaking analogy. Despite getting better at the game, why is my win rate still close to 50%? Right? So the challenge here, Azriel, is that you're getting better, but you're also, like, dealing with more. So as you, like, start doing well in school and now you're looking for a job and, like, now you're doing therapy and, like, even, like, you're actually, like, the challenge is that you're leveling up, but, like, the monsters you're fighting are, like, leveling up with you. And it's not actually that they're leveling up with you, it's just that you're going deeper and deeper into the game of life where things get harder and harder. So you're actually, like, objectively making progress and, like, you're climbing that mountain, right? So, like, the better you get at climbing, the higher you go, the thinner the air gets. And what it feels like is like you're making no progress. So that's just the first thing to understand, okay? So, like, anyway, so at some point you'll equilibrate out because, I mean, either you'll, climb towards, I don't know what, but generally speaking, at some point, like, you'll have, like, a job, hopefully you'll have, like, a good relationship, hopefully you'll have a good social circle, and then you kind of chill, and then you, like, look back on your life and you're like, wow, I've made a lot of progress, and actually I'm pretty happy. And even if we hear you talk, it sounds like in a lot of ways you feel, like, really, like, confident in yourself. You can accept yourself and be proud of some of your accomplishments. And there's a bunch of crap still lingering down there, so we're going to get to that. I just wanted to share that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
So the reason it feels like we're constantly struggling and not making progress is actually because we are progressing. So let me ask you, when it comes to the job, okay, when I'm going to toss something out. I'm going to guess that the fact that no one called you may have been the worst part of the experience. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. There was no input. I couldn't gauge the situation. It was hard to tell, if they were mad or if they were concerned, if they even cared about me. I don't know. I felt like maybe I wasn't actually that important.
Yeah. And so how do you understand that?
I don't know. It's just I don't think I am necessarily particularly important to anyone but myself, really. I mean, it'd be a little bit selfish to think that anyone else really cares about me. I mean, maybe my family, I guess, but maybe some people online, but it's mostly just me. So,
How does it feel to be unimportant to the rest of the world?
I mean, it sort of sucks, I guess. Maybe I feel a little sad and lonely. Like, nothing I do is going to change that. I think that's sort of where the feelings of hopelessness comes from.
Yeah.
And I think also that feeds into I have nihilistic thoughts. So, sort of the belief that, like, what's the point of doing anything if I'm just going to die and no one's going to care, right?
Yeah, so I think somewhere along the way, my understanding is that people have lost a big part of nihilism. Whereas I thought the point of nihilism is that you can't rely on an external objective standard for meaning and purpose. So it doesn't mean that there isn't any meaning and purpose. It means that you have to sort of carve it out yourself. And that there isn't like a omnipotent God that is going to give you meaning. And that
Yeah, I agree.
But
I don't know. I don't think I'd want anyone to. I don't know. I don't like the idea of some higher being controlling my life.
So before we get down the road of philosophy, which if you want to go down, we can. I'm going to ask you though, Azriel, how long have you been unimportant?
I don't know. Like forever, maybe 4th grade, I guess.
Why do you
I
say
don't know.
4th grade?
Well, it might have been before that too, but in 4th grade, that was when my parents split up. And then it's the weirdest thing. My dad was driving me to school one day, and we show up to school, and they're like, "Oh, you're not registered at this school anymore." And it turns out that my mom had just changed my school, so we had to show up at a different school, and I had no idea. My dad had no idea, and I don't know. I feel like from that point onward, things were different. So I was living between, both parents, switching houses. My mom was trying to find someone new, and My dad was always busy with work. I had siblings and they were always better than me at everything, so they always got credit. My mom eventually found someone new, but they were dealing with their own problems and they had a lot of maybe bad coping mechanisms. So, they'd drink and they'd take out their frustration on us, which wasn't very nice. I don't know. I felt like I had to prove myself, that I had to do everything just to get noticed. And I didn't really feel too important in the chaos that turned out to be growing up.
How does it feel to talk about this stuff?
I don't know. I can definitely feel there's an emotion down there of sadness, maybe. I don't know. It's difficult. I sort of learned to do everything on my own, and I haven't really had anyone to help me along the way, which just sucks.
Yeah, I'm sort of feeling an immense amount of pity. What do you think about that?
How would you describe pity?
Great question. So I feel sorrow for the kid that you used to be.
Yeah, I think so.
So when you say sadness, is that sadness for yourself or sadness for your former self?
Well, isn't it sort of both? Because my former self shaped who I am today.
Yeah.
And in a sense, it's sort of like I'm still, walking that path. So.
So can you... Can you tell me... Okay, hold on. I'm trying to decide if I can do something a little bit unorthodox with you, Azriel, because you've watched streams so much. So let's try to be a little bit unorthodox, okay? I'm going to need your help because this may fail miserably. Okay? So we'll fail together. So when you started talking about, you said your mom started looking for someone.
Mm-hmm.
And then you mentioned the person. And then the first thing that you said about them is they had their own struggles. What are you doing here?
Maybe I'm deflecting the blame.
Absolutely. Right? So you've watched stream a fair amount. So when someone comes on and says, oh, they had their own struggles, life was hard, they were addicted to alcohol, what does that person... What do we know about that situation? What can we infer about that situation when someone comes on stream and starts saying things like that, protecting someone?
Am I allowed to protect them a little more?
Yeah.
So I don't think they were addicted to alcohol. I just think when they were in a bad mood, they had a tendency to drink a lot.
Okay. Does that make things better or worse for you?
Well, I think it's just how I was able to tell whether I should be careful or not when I got home.
How do you feel about blaming them?
Well, it's hard because they can be abusive sometimes, but then sometimes, they're sort of a great person. Like, it's a mixed bag, I guess. So it's hard to blame them when I can recognize that they're not all bad, right? If they were pure evil, then it'd be easy.
One would think. And so I know this sounds kind of weird, Azriel, but like, in my experience, there's a certain amount of blame. There's like almost like, 100 points of blame in people's lives. And generally speaking, it gets distributed. Right? So I think some people who are like narcissistic will put 100 points of the blame on other people. And then, you know where I'm going with this? You're
put 100 points on myself.
What do you think?
Accurate.
Right? And it's kind of interesting because, like, I think when we think about, like, a lack of, like, how long have you felt not valuable? Well, like, where does that feeling of not being valuable come? Like, how does that, that feels to me very similar to the way that if you've been blaming yourself, every time you do that, you decrease your internal value. And then when someone doesn't call you after you don't show up for a job interview, what your mind tells you is like, see, they didn't care about you anyway. Like, you're not even worth it. They don't give a shit. It doesn't matter what, like, I have no impact on the outside world. They're going to live their lives, and whether I'm there or not there, whether I exist or not exist, the world doesn't really care. No one really cares. I'm insignificant. That's what your mind tells you.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
So I think how do you feel right now? You feeling okay?
Yeah, I think I'm all right.
Okay. Let me know, okay? If we're pushing past your boundaries, if we get to that point where you're like, oh my God, I'm so weak, I should be able to have another session with Dr. K. You let me know if you start thinking that way, okay?
All right.
Can I trust you there, bro?
I think so.
Okay, good. All right, let's keep going. So, tell me a little bit about, do you know why your parents split up?
Yeah, I talked to my mom a little bit about it. I think for her, she just didn't feel like she was getting, like, there was no sort of emotional connection. So maybe she felt a little emotionally neglected because my dad was always busy with work, and he is a very practical type of person. Get things done, all that. So maybe he's very busy, I'd say. I mean, he runs his own engineering company, and that's a lot of work in itself. He had a family. He was a scout leader. So, yeah, I think he just does a lot, and maybe he didn't have as much time to spend with her, and maybe that made her feel a little bit neglected.
Mm-hmm. So I notice you're providing reasoning again. Right? So you're hypothesizing why he wasn't able to meet her emotional needs. Do you see that?
Accurate.
I'm sure it's accurate. Is that what, do you ever think about, did you feel like your dad was there for you emotionally?
No.
And why not?
It's hard to describe. It's like he was and he wasn't. like he's always busy. Of course he cares. Like if I had a problem, let's say I'm doing badly in school, there was no understanding, there was no connection. It was just like, you need to do better. Like get your work done. Like this is unacceptable. Smarten up. I think there was no understanding there, I guess.
And what do you think about that?
Well, I know that I'm going to provide reasons why, and then deflect the blame, but I just don't want to blame him for it because I don't know.
Why don't you want to blame him? Good. So you're doing well, Asriel. I'm not going to force you to blame him. Do you feel like I'm bashing your dad?
No.
Okay.
I don't know. I respect him. He does.
I may be a tiny bit, but yeah.
He does a lot of stuff, and he's a very hard worker. It's hard to blame him. He's doing everything he can.
Mm-hmm. Where does that leave you? That he's doing everything that he can, but tells you to smarten up when you're struggling?
Yes, I just learned to deal with it.
And how did you learn to deal with it?
By getting things done.
Yeah, right? Pushing through, setting aside your feelings. Who cares? Your emotions have no value, Asriel. Smarten up. Push through. Screw your boundaries. Sound familiar?
It's the same philosophy he applies to himself. He pushes himself a lot too.
Mm-hmm. And I'm noticing that it can be quite... So I think there's a lot of, not confusion, but there's a lot of complexity which you're able to appreciate, right? When it comes to it sounds like your stepfather?
My actual father.
I know, but earlier we were talking about your stepfather, the one who drinks sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? So like your mind does a really good job of like noticing the good and the bad, which is actually healthy. Right? You're not going to like say like, oh, this guy was a complete asshole and the devil incarnate. There were times where it sounds like he was like a cool dude and maybe did care about you or something like that. And then when it comes to your dad, it's like, that's like he did a lot of good stuff. He pushed through a lot of things, like he worked really hard. He like built an engineering company. There's a lot here that I can honestly respect. And you're also able to acknowledge though that like, did he care about you? Yes. Did he love you? Obviously. Was he there for you? Not really. How does it, you want to push back against that, or what do you think about what I just said?
No, I think that's pretty accurate.
You said he was a scout leader?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
A scout leader, like in America it's Boy Scouts, but in Canada it's all inclusive. I think and sort of the reason he did that was, he wanted us to get into scouting and learn it because, it provides a lot of value for growth and learning. So I think that was part of it. And I think he was doing it for us. But at the same time, when you're a scout leader, you can't, have favoritism over your kids because that's just bad for the group. So, no, I was just treated like everyone else.
Well, okay. Too easy, Asriel. What are you doing? So you do this thing, right? You're just talking about scouts, and what do you say?
That I wasn't important. That he wasn't there for me.
Yep. let's back up a little bit and connect those dots. I think that's where we were going. But so you're good. You've been watching, paying attention. I don't know if chat was able to follow, but let's think through this, right? So I'm going to ask you now, be careful. Because like you started talking about scouts and you were like, he's not allowed to show favoritism. The fuck? Where does that come from? What does that have to do with anything? Right? It's what you told yourself when what happened.
No, he told that to me.
Okay. Oh, interesting. And how did it feel having your dad as a scout leader? You were presumably in scouts?
Yeah. Right. It was, I don't know. I think I just sort of accept it as reality. I don't really think about what it's like. I think it was pretty cool, actually. I mean, it's a pretty cool dad to have as a scout leader.
Mm-hmm. So maybe there wasn't any negative emotion there. I'm curious, did you ever feel jealous when you were in scouts?
No.
Okay. So you didn't have, because sometimes people like will have these kinds of thoughts or feelings where, if they didn't feel this way, don't say yes. But sometimes, I can imagine that you're a kid who feels maybe a little bit undervalued, and so that your mind would notice things, which actually may have been completely fair, right? He's not supposed to give you more or less attention. But if your mind was kind of hungry for attention from your dad, that maybe you noticed he was like supporting other kids and like you wanted him to support you the same way.
No, I think it was very much like equal. Like, yeah.
So you thought it was equal and fair and you felt like emotionally okay with that?
Yeah, I accepted it for what it was.
And what was it?
It was just being a leader and, helping the group learn and grow and learn new skills. And I was part of the group.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you're very proud of your dad.
Yeah, for sure.
Also sounds like maybe you felt proud of being your dad's son.
Yeah.
I can imagine that it can be hard or confusing to, even now, it sounds like you respect your dad a lot and you feel proud of him. Do you feel proud to be his son?
Yeah, sure. I never thought about it, but yeah, I guess so.
Okay. I'm a little bit confused by your response because you seem pretty, like I can imagine, like you sort of hinted at like, you like everyone in the troop knew that your dad was pretty cool because he was the scout leader and he knew all this stuff. So actually I'm feeling like a sense of pride there. When I ask you now, what I'm hearing is a logical answer.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like I can almost feel the pride that you felt as a kid. Like you guys are out doing scout stuff and you're like, yeah, that's my dad. I'm not hearing that same thing. I'm definitely hearing a lot of respect for what he's built, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Right? An understanding and an appreciation of the challenges that he's faced and how he's like continued to persevere through those challenges. Absolutely. Is he proud of you?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think I ever thought that he was proud of me until recently. No, it's sort of like I left for university and then, things just changed.
What changed?
I don't know. I was the youngest child in the family, so once I left, he sort of, he stopped being a scout leader. He started looking for a wife, or not a wife, but a girlfriend, someone else to live with. And then, I don't know. as he's been a lot more supportive and less sort of aggressive, like aggressive towards me and my achievements. Though he doesn't, I've talked to him and it's weird because he doesn't seem to acknowledge that anything has changed.
Yeah. Can I try to interpret what I heard? Maybe try to string together a couple of those dots? So I'm almost hearing that, like, maybe your dad, like his role as father was like almost like a grind for him. It was like a duty. You know, he had to make sure that you guys got to a certain point. It's almost like he didn't have the space to be like proud and chill. It's like, we got to get Asriel to college. We got to do this. We got to do this. Like, it's about like getting them to where they need to go in a very objective sense. And like feelings are like, no room for feelings.
Yeah, I think he sacrificed a lot for us.
And now that there's space for it, he's kind of chilling a little bit, maybe feels more proud of you.
I guess. I don't know. Maybe.
Has he ever said to you that he's proud of you?
No, not openly.
What would it be like to hear that?
I don't know if that's... I don't know if that would actually do anything.
Okay. What makes you think that?
I just... Like, great, he's proud of me, now what?
Good.
That doesn't solve anything.
What are we trying to solve? What's the
My
problem
life.
here? And what aspects of your life?
Me failing at everything.
Do you fail at everything?
Absolutely. That's how that's my approach. I just brute force it and I fail like every time, and you know, if I just do it enough times, eventually I'll get through. You know, I just power through everything.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm a little bit confused. Could you ever ask your dad if he was proud of you?
I don't think so. Like, why would I do that? That's just looking for validation. That's feeding a particular beast, is it not?
Give me a second, Asriel. I think we've stumbled upon a big problem. But give me just a second, because I trust that you're a smart dude, and I trust you're familiar with these concepts, so I got to figure out. Okay, here's where I'm coming from, okay, bro? I think you're doing well on the outside world. Like, the whole premise of this conversation is like you're making outward progress, but internally it still feels bad. So, like, the first thing that's weird is, like, I think we've run into some kind of... You know, like, when you're playing a game and, like, the boss is at 20% health and they, like, develop some kind of combo breaker super shield kind of thing? Where you're, like, you're on your way there and then, like, something pops up and then they, like, turn into some other boss and they've, like, morphed. I feel like that's what just happened. Because I thought the whole premise of this conversation, I realize we're being intellectual, so this may not be helpful, but, like, I want you to notice this with me. That, like, I thought the premise of this conversation is that outside, as your therapist puts it, you're thriving in a pandemic. I mean, are you, have you started a $1 billion company? Sounds like no. And at the same time,
I'll get there one day.
Absolutely, man. So like you'll like you're back in school, you have gotten through the way in which you failed to find a job is progressing. Right? You got a job, you didn't, it was hard. So like you're still like you're working on it. Actually, I'm not worried about the outside world. What I think this conversation is about is this unshakable feeling that you have that you are not worth anything. Right? That like you're not valuable.
I think I have value. It's what I can accomplish and do for people around me.
No, it isn't. So I know this sounds perplexing, but you have intrinsic value. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to disagree. It's just what I believe. It's a belief. So I think what you were taught is that like your value is like dependent on your accomplishments. Right? That like your dad, like when you didn't do a good job, like he didn't like demonstrate to you that I still care about you in a very like explicit way, right? He was like, you need to do better, then I shall love you. There's a part of you that knows that isn't true, but like there are some signals that he sent you that sort of like created that complex. Does that make sense? I mean, you even say it when you talk about your siblings. You're like, I had to work so much harder to get recognized because they were better than I was. There's a lot of like conditionality to like the love, right? So like your value as a person, even when it comes to your stepdad, like fluctuated. If your dad was in a bad mood, there's no intrinsic value. Actually, and so like the way that your stepdad treated you actually taught you that there's no constant sense of value, right? Like the way you get treated fluctuates depending on all kinds of external things. Does that make sense?
I'm a little confused about, you were talking about how it fluctuates with my stepdad. I think I always recognized that what he was doing was wrong, and it just became like a 4D chess game, 4D social chess game, trying to get him to not, get set off. I think I recognized that was sort of an abusive, toxic relationship, and that, I don't think I based my value on what he thought.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. So let me take a different angle. So like if we go back to your 4th grade school example, right? Like what I really interpreted there was that your mom sort of didn't care. Like she didn't think about your inconvenience and embarrassment.
Well, I think the idea was that my brother was going to the other school because he got in the gifted program and I didn't. And then she was sort of thinking, well, why don't I just go to that school too? But she never really told anyone. And part of that's probably because she was probably emotional at the time.
And what are you doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't help it.
Yeah, no, you're right. You can't help it. So it's I'm not telling you to stop. I think it's what your mind is doing. So you're absolutely right, man. Like it's like a very reasonable thing for your mom to do that, right? She's like, let's have my 2 kids together. One kid got into the gifted program, so I'm going to move the other kid. Totally fine. Like I don't think it's any like moving you to another school is completely logical. I have no issue with that. The question is, how did you feel the day that you showed up at your old school?
I think I just accepted that this is my life now. I go to a new school and I gotta figure out how to fit in.
Yep. So I think acceptance is absolutely right. Because what I'm hearing there, honestly, and you can push back if you want to, I may be wrong, right? So by all means, correct me. But like what I'm hearing is that like, you're kind of an afterthought. Right? Like it's one thing to move you. Like even if we say like, okay, your brother got into the gifted and talented program, we're going to move you anyway. but like at least let you know. Like I'm just trying to put myself in the shoes of a fourth grader who shows up at their class and their teacher is like, you're no longer a student here. Like, can you, like, that sounds so devastatingly embarrassing to me. Like, it sounds like bewildering and like clueless. Now, I don't even know if you went into the classroom and you got told by your teacher or like, you know, someone met you. Like, I don't know. But like what I'm kind of noticing is like inconsiderateness. It's like they don't even think about you. It's almost like your mom didn't like think to tell you, hey, by the way, like there's no space in her mind like for, I'm not trying to be brutal here, but like, you know, what I'm sort of noticing, it's almost like the same thing at work. It's like, does anyone even notice if I don't show up? It's like a lack of noticing, right? Like it's a lack of like I'm getting the sense, Azriel, I can see you're getting maybe a little bit emotional, but I like what I'm getting is like you were taught this lesson that like you're not worth thinking about.
Yeah, I think that's a common theme.
Right? And it's like, it's amazing to see you progress, like, especially in the high performance group where it's like, I don't belong here. And it's like, objectively, like, you know, you can make a good argument for that, but you absolutely belong there. And the objectivity of it doesn't matter. And like, you've been able to see, like, you know, even though there are people who are quite advanced in their careers here, who are very successful, like, I can still make a meaningful contribution. Like, that's intrinsic value. Right? That like no matter what your circumstances are, no matter who you're around, whether they're successful, unsuccessful, you have value. And so I think what we're working on here is not anything to do with the outside success, because I think that you learned how to push through, like you're crushing it, bro. Good. You have a ways to go? Absolutely. But are you making progress? Absolutely. What we're talking about here is that like feeling on the inside. At least that's what I'm focusing on. It's you tell me otherwise. But and this is where like I think it's going to be tricky, because I think what I'm detecting is a sense of like lack of intrinsic value. Right? The first question I think I asked you is, how long have you felt like, I don't know exactly what it was, that you weren't worth much? Right? You say forever. So it's something you carry with you. And we can go through these different stories about, you know, now that your dad, and so then when I ask you the question, like, is your dad proud of you? And you're like, I don't know what difference that would make. Dude, it's going to make all the difference.
I think I'd know how to process that, even if he did say it.
You're damn right you don't. Which is the entire problem. Right? Because, like, how do you process that which you've never heard before? And if we think about, like, what's the problem here, it's that, like, I know it sounds kind of weird, but, like, you know, this is sometimes what happens when kids aren't told that you're proud of them. Right? As they carry this thing where you're just not sure what your intrinsic value was. And you're like, how can words make a difference? And I'm not sure. I mean, and this is where I think you're incredibly frightened of asking him, too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
And so if we think about that, like we can see that sort of doesn't, if what he says doesn't matter, why on earth are you scared of asking him?
Maybe I just don't want to look like a fool.
Yep. I think you're afraid of two things. One is that he's going to say no. And probably more likely is he's not going to know how to answer the question. What do you think about that?
What do you mean when, like, you say he won't know how to answer it?
So in the same way that you don't know how to process his answer, he may not know how to process the question, because it sounds like that's not, you know, a scout badge that you guys ever got. Right? Like emotional discussions between father and son about like what he what you mean to him is like just something that you guys aren't familiar with.
I think he has expressed that he cares a lot about me.
That's completely different though.
Okay.
Right? I know it sounds similar, but let's be clear. I can care a lot about someone, but being proud of them is completely different.
Okay.
There's a reason I'm not asking about love, right? I'm not asking, does your dad love you? Because I know he loves you. You know he loves you. That's clear. Like, he's done a good job with that. He's sacrificed for you. You know you mean a lot to him. Like, I'm not hearing that at all. I know it sounds weird, but like, you know, so for some people, that's the issue. But for you, I think it's about pride. It's about value. It's about worth. You know, like at the end of the day, when you strip away all of your accomplishments, is like, are you worth something?
I guess I'd say not really.
Yeah. I think I can see that you believe that. And so when it comes to like nihilism and when it comes to like, you know, using frustration as fuel, like I think as long as you feel that way, like that's gonna be tough.
All right. I think also, because I had a conversation with him recently, and like that was, you know, I explained that I was having a rough time and whatever, and in the past, but like this time I was sort of talking about, you know, how I always feel I need to accomplish everything, and like with the job, how I didn't show up, and he was just like, dude, it's a summer job, like, are you being so hard on yourself?
I'm
And
sorry,
then he sort
who
of
said that?
up my dad.
Okay.
And then it was sort of like where did I go wrong? Like where did I mess up that, you know, you ended up this way?
Is that what he said to you?
Yeah. And then I was like, no, I don't think you messed up. I think, you know, that was just me learning to be me. And I think it was something that I taught myself. I think I was just deflecting the blame.
Help me understand how you interpret that interaction with your dad.
Um, it was just, I don't know, I guess it was a little bit relieving. Maybe that, you know, he didn't, you know, push me like, you know, I was the only one pushing myself, that he's not really pushing me anymore to succeed or whatever. So
Okay.
it was nice to let that go, I guess, sort of.
Okay. Azriel, I need a minute, okay?
All right.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to take a step back from that. Like, let's really pay attention to what was said, okay? And I'm noticing that maybe I'm trying to bludgeon you into believing something. Does it feel that way to you?
I don't think you can bludgeon me into believing anything if I don't want to.
I completely agree, but does it feel like you're being bludgeoned? I'm not saying it's working. I'm asking what it feels like.
I don't know what you're trying to get me to believe.
Great. Do you feel like I'm getting you to believe anything? I'm like pushing you to believe something?
Maybe something about intrinsic value and that my dad is proud of me or something.
Okay, good. All right. So let's listen to that statement, okay? So I'm just going to tell the story back as I heard it because it was a surprising story to me. So you didn't show up for your summer job. You go to your dad and you say, "Hey, by the way, I didn't show up for my summer job." Fair enough so far? Or And then he's like, "Where did I screw up with you?"
No.
What did he say?
It's more like, well, it was, I didn't show up. I felt, incredibly, I had an emotional breakdown. I was incredibly nervous. And he was like, why are you pushing yourself so hard? It's just a summer job. Like, it's only so much you can do. And then, where did I go wrong with you? Or no, I mentioned, how I have this performance versus growth mindset and trying to get out of the performance mindset. He's like, I never taught you that. Like, where did you learn that? Where
I see.
I go wrong with you?
Okay. How do you understand the statement, "Where did I go wrong with you"?
I think he's trying to put the blame on himself, maybe. And then I'm not allowing that.
Yeah. So I completely agree. So here's what I think is problematic. So I think this is some weird stuff, okay? So Azriel, what I'm about to say, there are multiple interpretations of. Number one interpretation is that I've got something in my mind and I'm not willing to let that go or change that. So I could be wrong here. So I'm going to just toss this out because this story is getting a little bit more and more unexpected. So I think there's something very supportive about that. And also something incredibly damning. So on the supportive side is the reason you're screwed up is because it's my fault and I wasn't good enough of a dad. And that's better than the reason you're screwed up is because of something that you did. The problem though, and this is what I'm trying to bludgeon you to understand, is that irrespective of who's to blame, there's a fundamental assumption that you're screwed up. Do you see that? It's where did I go wrong that my son ended up like this? That is the opposite of pride. Right? So is he growing and doing better and trying to be compassionate and understanding? And is he not? So he's grown, right? So he's doing better because he's not just saying, just be better, bro. He's where did I go wrong? So I get what you're saying, and I do think it's growth on his part. I don't think your dad is a bad dude by any means. It's just I want you to think about when a parent thinks that way about a child, even if they accept responsibility for it, what does it signal to the child about their intrinsic worth?
Yes, that's a feedback loop. So it's sort of confirming.
Right? And so that what?
Yeah, that I messed up, maybe.
Yep. And so if we think about what do you use toxic productivity to get over, it's that you're messed up. Right? And I don't think your dad is, honestly, I don't think he's a bad dude. It's clear to me that he loves you a lot. He's made a lot of sacrifices. It's clear to me that you love him. We haven't gotten to your mom or your siblings. and what it's like to have siblings who are in the gifted and talented program and you're not, and things like that, right? So like there are a lot of reasons. Like Azriel, I think the problem is not that you're stupid. I think the problem is that you're smart. The problem is that like you look around at the world and you see older siblings who are in the gifted and talented program and you see yourself and you're not. The problem is that you look around at the world and you see like other people who are able to do things that you're not able to do. And the problem is that your parents see that too, and that's a given in their mind. And I think it's those little statements, which if he's saying that now, like I'm curious, what did he say to you in high school? What did he say to you before? You know, it sounds like he said push through, push through, push through. But what I'm really not hearing is that like he's been proud of what you've accomplished. Whereas I am hearing that like you're starting to be proud in what you've accomplished. Like you're not comparing yourself to other people. What I'm hearing you learned in group is people, like even when you are not proud of yourself, they are proud for you. Does that make sense? And so how do you learn pride in yourself? It's because like when you don't feel proud of yourself, but you have done something to be proud of, other people are proud for you. And when they said that to you, like for the first time, Azriel, how did you feel?
I think I denied it.
Absolutely. Because your entire life you've been taught that you're not someone to be proud of. And you're a smart kid, so you learned that lesson. And now you carry it with you. And it takes time and effort. Like you've already started to put your life together, but I think you've really, like, it's hard to learn how to be proud of yourself. Because when you say your dad doesn't know how to respond to that statement, neither do you. It's like a foreign concept. Like Azriel is a good human being who makes the world a better place is like a foreign concept. I can logically give you 1,000 reasons, maybe even convince you. Like I could say that like Azriel, do you sometimes wonder if the world wouldn't not necessarily be a better place, but just that if you ceased to exist, the world would not bat an eyelash? Do you ever think that way?
Yeah, I think so.
Right? So like now, watch for it. So like you showed up here in March of 2020 and you took the waste of space that is Azriel. You showed up, we had a conversation, and I could say that thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people benefited from you showing up there. And that you're showing up today and you're being waste of space Azriel, and thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people who have had parents like yours who have loved them but never been proud of them are beginning to realize this. They're beginning to realize that like, oh my God, the way that I think about myself is because even though my parents loved me, like their disappointment in me was a given. And if I were to tell you that you have made all of their lives a tiny bit better, in the same way that every person who has come on stream has made your life a tiny bit better, what would you say to that?
I don't know. I guess that's a good thing.
Okay. Guess it's a good thing? Yes, it is. And who made that good thing possible? You see how hard it is? It's so fucking hard, isn't it? You're like... You're trying so hard not to admit it, even though, like, logically you're trapped in a corner. It's like... You feel that? It's like you can't have value. Like, tell me I'm wrong. If that's what you want to tell me I'm wrong. Explain it to me. Give me all the reasons why those people are benefiting, why every person on stream has helped you and that help has been real, but you are incapable of helping anyone in the audience. Tell me. Say what you ever, like, say whatever you want. Don't let me bludgeon you. Fight back.
I don't know. I don't really have anything to fight back with.
Okay, good.
It's just hard to comprehend, maybe.
Yeah. So that's good, Asriel. That's really good, actually. You can fight back if you feel like it. If your mind is telling, but what I fight back, I mean, like, if your mind is saying things to you that you're, like, dismissing, you can share those things. But is it saying things to you?
No.
Okay. How did it
Not really,
feel?
no.
How did it feel to hear me say that? That you are making the world a better place by being you and showing up here.
To be honest, I try not to think about it.
Good.
So that
That's
just makes me nervous.
Okay. That's probably helping. It seemed to me like you got a little emotional while I was, talking.
Yeah, I guess it just came out.
What emotion was that? I had trouble telling if that was a bad emotion or a good emotion.
I don't know. Just I I don't know.
Okay.
I think it was good.
Yeah, so I think that's...
I've never had anyone do that before.
Do what before?
Maybe validate my experience, or like, show me what I'm actually doing and that it matters.
Yeah, so my hope is that it was a good emotion. I think it was a good emotion, and I understand why it may have been confusing to you, because that is what feeling valued feels like. Right? So if I don't really know. I can't see your emotions, but like, generally speaking, what I was doing in that moment was like appreciating you for who you are. And being like grateful that like you exist. And it's kind of sad, but like sometimes people don't know what that feels like. Right? So it can be confusing the first time we feel an emotion. I don't know if that's actually what you felt or not, but like in this moment, I'm deeply grateful that you are the person that you are. I don't want you to be better. I don't want you to be worse. I don't want you to be smarter. I don't want you to be anything except for what you are. Because what you are is like absolutely enough. Like that's the premise of what we do here. Is that you can be as broken or as perfect as you want to be. You can be a gigantic streamer, or you can be someone from our community. And you can come here, and what you are can make the world a better place.
I don't think it's that I make the world a better place if I just come here and I don't do anything. Like I have to do something, talk about something.
I agree. That's what I appreciate. Like, I appreciate what you showed up here, like how you showed up here, and that you haven't been AFK for the last hour and a half. Right? Like, if you had been AFK, like, it's been hard, dude. Like, you've come here and you've done something hard. That's what I appreciate. Like, I don't care about, have you achieved a good result? I think so. But even if you hadn't, I think it's the showing up that matters. What do you... Help me understand where you are mentally right now.
I don't I mean, I'm understanding you, but I don't feel anything about it.
That's okay. I think that's all we can hope for, actually. So I think you felt something a little while ago, and I think that's enough. So here's what I'd say. Do you have questions, Azriel?
No, can't think of anything right now.
Okay. So, is it okay if I try to summarize? I mean, we can. In my mind, I think we've reached a good stopping point. How do you feel?
What time is it?
Well, I mean, we still have time. We've got about 15, 20 minutes left.
Oh,
What?
that went fast.
Yeah, we've been at this for an hour and a half.
Okay.
If it's okay with you, I'd like to kind of summarize why I feel this is a good stopping point, and maybe like try to share with you what my experience of this conversation is. And then I definitely want, if there are things that we didn't get to, I want to give you the space to say, hey, what about this, or this, or I still want to know about this. Okay. Is that cool?
All right.
So first of all, you showed up here in March of 2020 and you were struggling. You were overthinking a lot. You were very outcome oriented. You didn't have a whole lot of confidence in yourself. You didn't really know how to take action. It sounds like you've made you've spent a lot of time and energy in growing as a person. You did coaching. Seems like that was good. Coaching helped you get into therapy, so it sounds like maybe you had some concerns about going to therapy and things like that. And maybe coaching helped you kind of overcome those, which is one of the outcomes of coaching that we're actually studying now, is helping people get into therapy. You did therapy for a while. It sounds like you found like a pretty good CBT therapist, but that your sessions were a little bit short. They helped you. You came in with a goal. They helped you kind of accomplish that goal. But it also sounds like some of the emotional work that you were hoping to do, you really didn't get a chance to do in therapy.
Yeah. I think part of that was just that I didn't, because it was about the finishing school and all of that more than it was about, yes, it was about feeling better as well. I don't know.
I mean, you
it
said
was
several.
mixed.
Yes, like I said, you've said several times that the goals of the therapy that you set out for were accomplished. And at the same time, I'm noticing that maybe you wanted something a little bit more, but that financial constraints also kind of limited what you were able to do in therapy. So you came back to us. You found yourself in the high performance group and being a little bit confused and maybe feeling out of sorts, but that you've learned how to be confident, essentially, right? Like, and recognize that, like, even though objectively you may not fit in some ways, that you have value in the group and you can make meaningful contributions, even though you're still a student and some people in there have started companies with you. So now when you came on here, we were talking about this pattern, right? That you've actually started to make a lot of progress in your outward life. You're actually in the process of putting your life together in a very real way. You've finished 2 years of college. You are trying to get a job, or you got a job, you didn't show up and whatnot. That's okay. Once again, you're on your journey. And the main thing that maybe you could use help with is that even though you've started to push aside some of those negative feelings, you actually, through your own introspective work, have discovered that you have some degree of toxic productivity, that you kind of like push past some of those feelings and you actually use shame and like a sense of like, oh, I'm so pathetic, to drive yourself forward in a very like outward way, but that there's still this internal stuff that like is hard to deal with. Although I'm hearing that on a day-to-day mood basis that you're actually feeling like somewhat better than a year ago. So, yeah.
Can I just add, I was wondering, you mentioned at the beginning that there was another way to overcome that hump without the shame. I was just wondering, what that was.
Yeah, so there's alternate coping mechanisms to overcome the negative emotion, and there is
Yeah.
lowering the burden of negative emotion.
Okay.
So the alternate coping mechanisms would be like, let me just think of an example. So like a simple, so when we talk about dharma, right? Like you can do things out of dharma, or you can do them out of toxic productivity.
Okay. So that's sort of like, you show up to the job and you just see what you can do type of thing.
Yeah, so that I think is more action orientation, but not see what you can do. That's a step in the right direction. That's moving away from an outcome orientation to an action orientation. I would say dharma is like when you show up, like you're showing up for like a reason besides toxic productivity. So like
Okay.
this is where like, you show up and then you kind of say to yourself, I'm not saying you should say this, it's just the only thing that comes to your mind. Let's say hypothetically you're going to come on stream 1 year later. And then like what you're saying is like, I need to like learn how to do this so that when I share things with people who are like where I was, I can like help them understand what this process is like. I have to learn how to be okay in this job so that if I ever meet someone else who's like struggling, like I can help them. Like I get that you want to be a marine biologist, but let's say like you decided you wanted to become a psychologist. And if you want to help people who's, who are struggling with that, like you have some broader like purpose that matters to you. So you can say like, okay, I need to make money so that I can support XYZ. So there are motivations besides toxic productivity, basically.
Okay. And then what we did today was talking about sort of how I haven't felt pride, and then that would be dealing with the bump that I have to overcome.
Absolutely, right? So like what is that emotional energy that you have to overcome with toxic productivity? And that I think is so you mentioned a bunch of emotions, right? You said sadness. Oh, I realize that there's sadness and there's fear and there's, shame. But based on talking to you, what I'm really hearing is that like somewhere, like really at the core of it, I think Azriel is like just the sense that you're not worth much. And I think that there have been times in your life, and it didn't take you long to kind of say, how long have you felt that way? 4th grade. And I think that's when it started. Like that's like the first time that I don't think you understood that then, but when I ask you the question now, like you're able to go back to 4th grade and kind of say, this is the first time that like I really felt like someone didn't bother to think about me.
I don't think it was the first time. I think it was just a more extreme example.
Yeah, okay. So that's even more devastating, right? Because that means it happened before that. And so then we kind of got to talking a little bit about like, how did you come to believe that you aren't worth being proud of? And so this is where we got into the dad bashing. Once again, I'm not trying to bash your dad. It's just, I think sometimes as parents, and we all do this, like I do this to my kids, we say things to them that have psychological impacts because no one is a perfect parent. And the psychological impacts, despite the love, despite the caring, despite the sacrifice, because it sounds like objectively your dad was a really good dad. You respect him a lot. You love him a lot. It sounds like he started to like reshape his life and even put his romantic interests aside to care for you guys. And, we're not even going to get to like what he thought about your stepdad and whether he heard about that and all that kind of crap. But
well, he definitely thought that, my stepdad was a bit of a meathead.
Yeah. So I'm hearing that your dad really put his life on hold and made a lot of sacrifices to try to help you guys as much as possible. And he's actually a really good dad. And he never told you he was proud of you. And that even though he blames himself, it's still sort of like, he still kind of believes that you're kind of like, you're in the bargain bin of children, which is like such a devastating thing to feel, right? There's the gifted and talented siblings, and then there's you. And so like, I think that like it's devastating. It makes me feel like an asshole saying that phrase. I've never said that before, but it feels so devastating. And if that's what you kind of grew up with, that's why you believe that about yourself, right? You've been conditioned. And now, hopefully through group and some of these other experiences, you can learn to actually recognize. And like, even when I sort of said, like, Azrael, like, you are making the world a better place by existing. I mean, not just by existing, because like you're doing more than existing, right? Even if you may not have become quote unquote overwhelmingly successful, the fact that you are on this journey and the fact that you do put yourself outside of your comfort zone and like you do genuinely enrich and improve the world around you. And it's not because of performance. It's like because you just show up and you give it all you've got. And that's all the world needs from you, is just for you to be you and give it all you've got. The world doesn't need you to be you and give it nothing. Right? Then you really are like not delivering value.
Well, when I show up and I give it all I got, I often feel like it's not enough.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the intrinsic value, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, perfect. Right? Because you're starting from a basis of like, I'm in the bargain bin. And so like, no matter like how good of a find you get in the bargain bin, as long as you remember, oh, I got this from the bargain bin, you're going to actually like, it's like a little bit scuffed. Got it on discount. Whereas no, like, it's a steal, dude. It's like worth every penny and worth way more than I paid for it. Your value is actually far above what you estimate it to be. And so going forward, I encourage you to really like, ask yourself as you start to introspect and you start to feel these negative emotions, like, does this come back to, I'm not valuable? And to try to see, and this is going to be the really hard part, is like, there are going to be times in your life where you are valuable and I think you've started to discover this. But even if I tell you, you're going to push back. Like when you show up in group, like you help people. What do you think about that?
I don't.
It's so hard. Oh my God. You told me earlier in this conversation that I realize now that I can still make contributions.
Yeah,
but yeah, right. It's so hard.
I don't know if those contributions help necessarily.
Yes, beautiful, right? I make contributions, but they're not as valuable as other people's. It's so hard to just be like, no, you do good. Damn you. And that's me bludgeoning you. So it's going to take time. So be patient with yourself, Astrid. Be patient, okay? Like, it's fine to have that voice. It's fine to, like, no matter what we send it, just see how it's, like, always going to, like, contort and twist and just, like, devalue, like, because, like, it just doesn't compute in your mind, right? Like, it doesn't compute in your mind that you could show up somewhere and, like, have an impact on another human being.
It's like I'm in the Matrix. I'm Neo dodging the bullets.
Absolutely, dude. And just like the Matrix, it's completely OP. It's like busted. It's completely unfair to those of us who are sending you the bullets of appreciation. It's like, we don't stand a chance against that, man. Yeah, you're dodging. You're really good. And I think, you do this a lot, right? So then the last thing that I'll kind of leave you with is this sort of idea of like what amount to blame. And just be careful about where you assign it and how you protect people. Because, like, dude, come on, man. Like, I'm pretty sure that... So Chad is learning. This blows my mind. I'm pretty sure that when you literally said that your stepdad, had a lot of challenges, like, everyone knew that abuse was coming. Like, yeah. We've heard it enough times. Right? Like, let's not even get started on your mom. And, like, we just had an interview, like, on Wednesday about... blaming the good parent or trying really hard not to hold the good parent responsible for like letting the bad parent do things to you.
And just to add to that, I think in the end, she did start to stand up for us. There was a breakup, and then he moved out for a bit, and then they went to a therapist and tried to work through it, and they got back together. And so
Good.
there's definitely growth on her part too.
Yeah. Good. What does that mean for you?
I don't know.
Right? So like,
Guess I'm still here.
Yeah, so like there's a part of me that wants to say too little, too late. But you'll push back against that, right?
I think you said that last time too.
What was I talking about? Your mom? Oh.
Well, you were talking about that relationship. Same thing.
Okay.
Pretty much.
Anyway, we don't have to get into it, but that's where like I think so. Asriel, I think like, dude, you're well on your journey. It sounds like you've made a lot of external change, and what I really think is that something tells me that I don't know if you're interested in a romantic relationship, if you're in a romantic relationship, but like this is the kind of thing that as you start to work on, I think a romantic relationship will become more available and also like easier to exist within.
Okay.
But I think when it comes to dating, like if people who feel intrinsically like they have very little value have a lot of trouble in dating, because it's very confusing when someone seems to be genuinely interested in them, and then they're just like they don't know, like that when I tell you something and you just can't, you just gotta say but. And like so this is the kind of thing where I think like continue growing, man, and just kind of notice this, like, continue making the world a better place as you are, and like, learn how to be proud of yourself. And then if one day, if you grow a pair, you can ask your dad if he's proud of you. And it may be a hard question to ask, and it may be a hard question to answer, but we'll get there one day.
Right.
I was joking about growing a pair. I think you're actually very brave. It was a Twitch memeing. Just wanted to clarify. I wasn't sure if that would be interpreted the wrong way, because it just occurred to me that maybe with the way that you interpret things, Thoughts, questions before we wrap up?
I think that's about it. In regards to the relationships, I don't have one, and I'm not currently looking. I think there's definitely a lot of fear and confusion around that as well. So yeah, I think you're right.
Yep. So I think as you work through this, the relationship will come. So don't worry about it. Just keep walking what you're walking, and I'm confident that you'll end up happy and in a place where you're good.
All right.
Do you want to meditate?
We can try it. I've done some of your meditations on previous streams, but I haven't noticed it have much an effect on me.
Can you help me understand what your experience of those meditations is?
I think sometimes maybe I feel something a little bit, but it's like I know sometimes chat mentions, they had this crazy experience, and for me it's like, I don't know, nothing really changed that much. I still feel the same way.
Okay.
Maybe my thoughts are a little less, but
what usually happens when you meditate? What's your experience of meditating?
I think maybe I get a little bit calmer. Maybe a little more relaxed, but nothing, nothing big.
Do you think when you meditate?
Sometimes. I guess it depends on the meditation.
All right, let me think.
I was thinking if you had anything to say, when I get extremely anxious or something that could like ground me in that moment so I don't get carried away.
What happens when you get extremely anxious? Tell me about that.
I think I just, like, my mind wanders. I start thinking about everything. I try to prepare as much as I can. I get really stressed. That's where, I have that nervous meltdown in front of the job site. That's where I try to suppress it with frustration towards myself.
Okay. Have you tried practicing Kapalabhati or the rapid exhalations? Have you done that before?
Yeah, I think so.
So I would say, and how many? Okay, so for people for whom meditation hasn't really worked on stream, let's just go through a couple of basics, okay? The first is that meditation is a skill that sometimes requires practice. So what we try to do on stream, so the reason we teach different meditation techniques on stream is because different people will naturally, hopefully, have a good experience in meditation using a particular technique. The challenge is that, when it comes to the scope of techniques that I teach probably like 10 to 15% of what I would use with people that I work with on a regular basis. And that's because these are the techniques which are like easy, accessible, and you can't really screw up. They also, so there's like a whole host of other techniques which are, more dangerous, but are also more powerful. There's a whole host of techniques that require more guidance or like subsequent amounts of teaching to really anchor people in a practice. So we're really kind of handicapped in some ways.
Okay.
So what I would say for you is that we should practice Kapalabhati again. Let's give it another shot. I'll actually guide you through it. So it's going to be rapid exhalations, and that's mainly because it's a physiologic technique. So like when you're feeling anxious like that, your sympathetic nervous system is going to be active. So you're going to have adrenaline and things like that. So there's a really interesting way to rein in your sympathetic nervous system, which is to become actually temporarily hypocarbic. So what we're going to do is rapidly exhale, which is going to decrease the CO2 level. And when your CO2 level drops, that actually is going to change your respiratory drive and really slow you down. So hopefully it'll kind of crack the overthinking cycle by like literally sort of like shutting off your mind. Over time, yeah, go ahead.
That's like the one where it's sort of like hyperventilating in a way, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Have you done that one before? Sounds like you have.
Yeah. Yeah, I did it, I think, once or twice.
So the other thing, for whatever reason, I don't know why this is. Actually, I do know why this is, but it's... So people will say, like, even when they watch meditation on stream, and then when I actually do it with them on stream, that sometimes it has a differential effect. Not quite sure why that is. I have theories. There are things written in ancient texts. But, for now, let's just give it a shot, because I think, and I would just encourage you to practice the technique, because it's sort of like, swimming isn't great exercise the first time you get in the water. You have to like learn how to swim, and then it can be a very healthy form of exercise. Long term, what I would strongly recommend, Azriel, is you probably need to do some kind of sankalp-oriented meditation. So I would say if you have a set of prayer beads, fantastic. If not, get one. And like this is one of those things where you need to start like internally wiring. You're like rewiring like the way that you think about yourself.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think about, so there's some kind of sankalp around worth. But let me just think about. Let me just think. Yeah, I'm going to have to think about what that sankalp will be. I may DM you if it comes to
All
me.
right. Yeah, I do have a bracelet. I can't. There it is. It's not really. It's not really a prayer beads, but I don't know.
Get
Probably.
prayer beads.
All right.
Yeah. Let me just think about. Let's do Kapalabhati today, and give me just like 30 seconds to try to come up with sankalp, and then I'll. That's not it. Yeah, I can't think of anything in this moment, but sometimes I think of these things actually when I meditate. It's just. Yeah, let me just. I'm drawing a blank. It's like right at the edge. I feel it. It's just not coming to us. So let's stick with Kapalabhati, okay? I may just send you a random DM at some point, though.
All right.
So with Kapalabhati, you may want to blow your nose. We've got boogies and stuff. If not, GG.
All right. One sec.
Okay. So sit up straight. And remember, we're going to do abdominal breathing. So do you remember how to do? So for people who need a guide, what we're going to do is as we inhale, we're going to push the stomach out. So expand your abdomen. And as you exhale, pull the abdomen in. Contract. Good. So breathe in and pull the abdomen out. Big, big belly. And then exhale, and then let the abdomen come in. Okay. Now we're going to do the Kapalabhati part. So we're going to take a deep breath, and it's going to be rapid exhalations. I'll demonstrate for about 9 rounds. Okay. So I'll take a deep breath in. Okay. And when you do it, what I want you to do is focus on your stomach. And you can almost spasm that stomach and push that air out. Okay. So let's have you do it. Let me just observe you. So deep breath in and do 9 breaths. Good. Perfect. Okay. So now we're going to do it together. We're going to do, let's start with 15. Okay. So it's going to be 15 breaths. There's going to be a period of silence where you're going to just let your breathing do what it wants to. Don't necessarily try to think, but also don't get too tense about, pushing thoughts out of your head. Just let them come and let them go, and just sit in the space post meditation. Okay. We'll do 15 breaths. We'll sit for about 30 seconds. I'll bring you back after that. Okay. So take a deep breath in and begin. All right, you can leave your eyes closed. Now we're going to go to 20. So 20 breaths, followed by a period of silence. Deep breath in. And begin. Okay, now we're going to go up to when you're ready, go ahead, come on back. What was that like for you?
I did notice that maybe I got a little lightheaded at the end, which I guess was the point. I don't know, I feel calmer.
Yeah, so I'd say 33 breaths 3 times. So you want to work your way up to like 33 exhalations, maybe a minute or two in between, for a total of like somewhere around 5 to 7 minutes of practice.
Okay. I might have messed up the beginning because I thought you meant like 15, like breathe in and do the out 9 times for 15 times.
Oh, that's fine. I mean, yeah, that wasn't what I was saying, but that's a lot, which is fine.
Yeah.
So like I'd say 33 exhalations for 1 set and do 3 sets. Like reps and sets. So 33 reps, 1 set. Okay. And then, if you're starting to if you're starting to feel anxious, if you find yourself once again at like that job kind of situation, I'd start with Kapalabhati. You can add on alternate nostril breathing afterward for about 5 to 7 minutes, and hopefully that'll calm you down unless you're having like a truly clinical panic attack, in which case that may be insufficient, but it still helps. Okay? And then just, calm it down. And then by the time you get your prayer beads, I will hopefully have something for you. So go find some. And if it takes you 6 months, then I've got 6 months. If it takes you a month, then that's how long I've got. Okay.
What are the requirements for the prayer beads? Like, would I need actual ones or?
Yeah, so I would get some kind of set of like any religious tradition prayer beads. So like if you have a Catholic background, you can get a rosary. If you don't, I would recommend something from like the meditative traditions. So like Buddhism or Hindu or whatever, you can get like a mala from, wherever. Be careful about the fashionable ones. So I know it's kind of hard, but try to get something that feels a little bit authentic. Ideally, if there's actually like, I don't know where you live, but if there's like a Buddhist monastery or temple somewhere near you, I would call them and say, hey, do you guys have like a place that I can get some prayer beads? Maybe we just need to note to self. Okay. Got to think about getting those for y'all, but that's what I would recommend. So yeah.
And then you can abduct me into the cult.
We will induct you. The abduction comes for the people who are not willing to be inducted. So you're
okay.
willing. The abduction comes for your siblings. Abduction and induction, very different, right? So Asriel, thanks a lot for coming on, man. It's been awesome to see how far you've come, and good luck with the rest of your journey, bro.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care.
All right, you too.
Chat.